Hello and welcome to another interesting piece of information with Laurence Grant. I've been doing photography now for quite some time now. I think 40 years plus would be in the area that we're talking about. What I wanted to talk to you today about is that possibly a lot of you have come across the Samyang range of lenses, and particularly the video lenses, which I'm using quite a lot now. And here's one we've got. This is the 85mm 1.5. They're measured as a T1.5 in the video department, but in the photographic department, the equivalent would be an f1.4. This lens, which is the video lens, has a declicked aperture, a manual aperture ring, so you can alter the aperture and adjust the settings without getting any noise coming in through your video recordings. And obviously, very nice piece of equipment, as you can see. And the cost, is significantly cheaper than some of the branded stuff because they're all manual lenses. Now, what I found is that because they're manual lenses, I wasn't getting the information coming up on my camera. When I was putting any of these lenses on, I was getting I was dialing up the speed, and then I was just getting the f-stop with a dash. And I found that as I continued to swap around with lenses, when I imported the video clips or even the photographic clips, I wasn't getting any information of how I shot that, which I would like to have had, in the same way as when I'm using Nikon autofocus, auto exposure lenses. I want to know that piece of information. And so I remembered the word non-CPU, and it just came to mind, and I thought that goes back to the days when the lenses were manual and you needed to tell the camera bits of information. And of course, with the digital cameras today, it's more important that the two things work together. So what we were finding, or what you find, is using a manual lens was not giving you the information, obviously, that you want to hear about or see. So I went in, and this is where I'm recommending that you do the same thing. If you go into the setup menu on your Nikon camera and scroll down, you'll find a setting called non-CPU lens. And what that does is it allows you to input up to 10 lens data into that setting. So it's got, numerically, it's got 1 to 10, and then under each of those 1 to 10 headings, you can tell what lens it is and the aperture. So what I've done is I've taken my 24mm Samyang 1.5, we'll cut, for the sake of it, 1.5, and I've dialed up lens 1, and I've dialed up 24mm, and it'll go up 24, 35, 50, whatever. See, 24mm, and then it says what's the f-stop, and the nearest one to 1.5 is 1.4, and I've dialed that in. And then I've gone into lens 2, and I've put in 50mm, and I've dialed up 1.4 again. And then I've gone into lens 3, and I've dialed up 80mm, and I've said 1.4. And then you can say lens 4, it could be your 100 or 135mm lens, 1.4, whatever aperture lens it is, and you can so on and so forth. So if you've got some of the older lenses, particularly some of the older Nikon lenses, if you've got a 20mm, 3.5, f4, whatever, you just dial in, lens number 5, say, it's 20mm, and nearest is 3.5. And what this will do is it will give you that information. You just got to remember that when you change the lens over, you then got to go into the sub-menu and change that and put that piece of information in. And the way that I've handled that is I've taken out a couple of things in my menu, and I put in the CPU lens information as one of the priority things I'm going to use. I think I put it next to the battery information. And so if I'm shooting on 24mm, I'll go in, I dial up lens 1, click on that, say OK to that, I'll use that lens. If I swap and I go to an 85mm, say this lens, then I go in, scroll down to lens 3, that's my 85mm, set, OK, and then shoot with that. And the benefits really being that if I then take the card, the memory card, and put it into my software, in my case I'm using Apple Aperture, all the information is there for me. So now, instead of getting a series of f-stops with dashes, I'm getting all the f-stops that are coming up the right thing. Well, in this case, it'll be 1.4, but it's the nearest thing. But fundamentally, it tells me which lens I was using. Obviously, I can see, you know, from the actual screen involved, an idea what the focal length of the lens would be. But it, you know, particularly if it's 85mm, 100mm, you know that. But you know, if you've got a 20mm or a 24mm, 35mm, you know, it's going to be hard to look at that overall scene and know exactly what lens you were using. So this has brought in a whole new ball game, and particularly also when I'm using these lenses photographically, because in the past I was getting no information on the Nikon screen at all. And now that I've told it this piece of information, I can now see the f-stops as I'm changing it. And even doing this video now, I've been altering it, and I can see on the screen exactly what f-stops I'm using, rather than having to come round and look and say, okay, well, I'm shooting at 5.6, so I'm going to have to dial at 5.6 on here, get that to line up, 5.6, and then if I want to change it, I've got to come back round, I've got to go and see where I'm moving it to. Now I'm getting that information coming up on the screen. So I just hope that that you find this piece of information useful, and that you didn't know, and it's something that you now can use, because certainly for the last year or two I've been using these lenses and I've had no data at all on it, and I just now think I wanted to share that with you. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.